Hey guys, welcome back to Meant for Greater. Before we get started, drop a like on this video. It helps a lot with the YouTube algorithm so more people can see these videos and help change their lives. I would be eternally grateful if you subscribed as well. In this video, we continue our series on the highly underrated self-development book, Psycho-Cybernetics. Today we are reading from Chapter 5, titled, How to Utilize the Power of Rational Thinking. Just a reminder, the guy who wrote this was a plastic surgeon who realized most problems can be solved with an adjustment to self-image. Chapter 5 begins. Many of my patients are plainly disappointed when I prescribe something as simple as using their God-given power of reason as a method of changing negative beliefs and behavior. To some, it seems incredibly naive and unscientific, yet it does have one advantage. It works. And as we shall see later, it is based upon sound scientific findings. There's a widely accepted fallacy that rational, logical, conscious thinking has no power over unconscious processes or mechanisms, and that to change negative beliefs, feelings, or behavior, it is necessary to dig down and dredge up material from the unconscious. Your automatic mechanism, or what the Freudians call the unconscious, is absolutely impersonal. It operates as a machine and has no will of its own. It always tries to react appropriately to your current beliefs and interpretations concerning environment. It always seeks to give you appropriate feelings and to accomplish the goals which you consciously determine upon. It works only upon the data which you feed it in the form of ideas, beliefs, interpretations, opinions. It is conscious thinking which is the control knob of your unconscious machine. It was by conscious thought, though perhaps irrational and unrealistic, that the unconscious machine developed its negative and inappropriate reaction patterns, and it is by conscious rational thought that the automatic reaction patterns can be changed. Here he is saying that it is the conscious thought that is the gatekeeper to the unconscious mechanism. It's kind of an interesting dynamic because we have learned that our subconscious beliefs determine our reality, but also our conscious thoughts determine our subconscious beliefs. So it is important to only consciously think about and allow into our conscious thought patterns that which we want to become evident in our reality. The late Dr. John A. Schindler won nationwide fame for his outstanding success in helping unhappy, neurotic people regain the joy of living and return to productive, happy lives. His percentage of cures far exceeded that of psychoanalysis. One of the keys to his method of treatment was what he called conscious thought control. Regardless of the omissions and commissions of the past, he said, a person has to start in the present to acquire some maturity so that the future may be better than the past. The present and future depend upon learning new habits and new ways of looking at old problems. There simply isn't any future in digging continually into the past. The underlying emotional problem has the same common denominator in every patient. This common denominator is that the patient has forgotten how, or probably never learned how, to control his present thinking to produce enjoyment. This is a pretty plain and simple summary of the paragraph. Stop living in the past. He goes on to say that our past failures need not be dwelled upon rigorously examined without end. Life is a game of trial and error. Failure should not be viewed as a thing to be avoided so much as a thing to be learned from. When we're learning to do something, whether it be playing a game or learning a skill, it's all based on the same process. We make a mistake and remember the degree of error and adjust until we get it right. Then we have the correct equation in our minds and continue to do that. He says that these negative experiences do not inhibit but rather contribute to our learning process and, I would argue, ultimate success. He makes the point next that after the correction is made, the failure should be forgotten. What that means is we are to remember the correct way and forget the wrong way. The failure has served its purpose so long as we learn from it and leave it in the past. It only does us harm if we continue to remember and replay it in our minds. He warns that if we continue to dwell on our past mistakes after correcting them, those will become our goals. In other words, our success mechanism will strive towards more of the same failures if that's what we focus on. Do not live in condemnation of your past mistakes. He then says this, Memories of past failures can adversely affect present performance if we dwell upon them and foolishly conclude, I failed yesterday, therefore it follows that I will fail again today. However, this does not prove that unconscious reaction patterns have any power in themselves to repeat and perpetuate themselves, or that all buried memories of failure must be eradicated before behavior can be changed. If we are victimized, it is by our conscious thinking mind and not by the unconscious. For it is with the thinking part of our personality that we draw conclusions and select goal images that we shall concentrate upon. The minute that we change our minds and stop giving power to the past with its mistakes loses power over us. He speaks again on hypnosis and how certain shy, timid subjects would be given suggestions about how they believed they were bold, confident orators, and their reaction patterns would change instantly. I will now read in its entirety this next paragraph that is rather long, but I believe it to be very important to understand, and I will add some commentary at the end. Dorothea Brande tells in her charming book, Wake Up and Live, how this one idea enabled her to become more productive and successful as a writer, and to draw upon talents and abilities she never knew she had. She had been both curious and amazed after witnessing a demonstration in hypnosis. Then she happened to read one sentence written by psychologist F.M.H. Myers, which she said changed her whole life. The sentence by Myers explained that the talents and abilities displayed by hypnotic subjects were due to a purgation of memory of past failures while in the hypnotic state. If this were possible under hypnosis, Miss Brande asked herself if ordinary people carried around within themselves talents, abilities, powers which were held in and not used merely because of memories of past failures, why couldn't a person in the wakeful state use these same powers by ignoring past failures and acting as if it was impossible to fail? She determined to try it. She would act on the assumption that the powers and abilities were there, and that she could use them if only she would go ahead and act as if, instead of in a tentative, half-hearted way. Within a year, her production as a writer had increased many times. So had her sales. A rather surprising result was that she discovered a talent for public speaking, became much in demand as a lecturer, and enjoyed it, whereas previously she had not only shown no talent for lecturing, but disliked it intensely. Okay, guys, imagine for a moment that all of your limiting beliefs are not based on fact, but rather the memories of past failures. This is why we don't tend to try anything new once we get into a groove in life. We have, through our past failures, determined what we're capable of, and anything else is beyond our reach. If you can forget the past failures in your life, or at least pretend they don't define you for long enough, you can change your life. He then goes on to quote Bertrand Russell, where, among other things, he says, What I suggest is that a man should make up his mind with emphasis as to what he rationally believes, and should never allow contrary irrational beliefs to pass unchallenged or obtain a hold over him, however brief. Basically, many of our fears and limitations can be solved by realizing that they are inconsistent with another deeply held rational belief. Once we realize that, great progress can be made. He offers this example. One of my patients was a salesman who was scared to death when calling upon big shots. His fear and nervousness were overcome in just one counseling session, during which I asked him, would you physically get down on all fours and crawl into the man's office, prostrating yourself before a superior personage? I should say not, he bristled. Then why do you mentally cringe and crawl? Another question. Would you go into a man's office with your hand out like a beggar and beg for a dime for a cup of coffee? Certainly not. Can't you see that you are doing essentially the same thing when you are overly concerned with whether or not he will approve of you? Can't you see that you have your hand out, literally begging for his approval and acceptance of you as a person? Can you guys see how if you are rational in one aspect of your thinking and hold an inconsistent perspective in another, how that inconsistent perspective is out of place? Leave me a comment down below if you understood this principle. I think it's essential to understand this. He expands on this next. One of the reasons that the power of rational thinking goes unrecognized is that it is so seldom used. Trace down the belief about yourself or the belief about the world or other people, which is behind your negative behavior. Does something always happen to cause you to miss out just when success seems to be within your grasp? Perhaps you secretly feel unworthy of success or that you don't deserve it. Are you ill at ease around other people? Perhaps you believe you are inferior to them, or that other people per se are hostile and unfriendly. Do you become anxious and fearful for no good reason in a situation that is relatively safe? Perhaps you believe that the world you live in is a hostile, unfriendly, dangerous place, or that you deserve punishment. Remember that both behavior and feelings spring from belief. To root out the belief which is responsible for your feeling and behavior, ask yourself, why? Is there some task which you would like to do, some channel in which you would like to express yourself, but you hang back feeling that I can't? Ask yourself why. Why do I believe that I can't? Then ask yourself, is this belief based upon an actual fact or upon an assumption or false conclusion? Then ask yourself the questions. 1. Is there any rational reason for such a belief? 2. Could it be that I'm mistaken in this belief? 3. Would I come to the same conclusion about some other person in a similar situation? 4. Should I continue to act and feel as if this were true if there's no good reason to believe it? Don't just pass these questions by casually. Wrestle with them. Think hard on them. Get emotional about them. Can you see that you have cheated yourself and sold yourself short not because of a fact, but only because of some stupid belief? If so, try to arouse some indignation or even anger. Indignation and anger can sometimes act as liberators from false ideas. This is a case where you can use indignation and anger to your benefit. Obviously, you want to maintain a cool countenance in general, but in like social situations and stuff. But this is where you can use it to grow and change your life. He offers these examples. An old farmer said he quit tobacco for good one day when he discovered that he left his tobacco home and started to walk the 2 miles for it. On the way, he saw that he was being used in a humiliating way by a habit. He got mad, turned around, went back to the field, and never smoked again. Clarence Darrow, the famous attorney, said that his success started the day he got mad when he attempted to secure a mortgage for $2,000 to buy a house. Just as the transaction was about to be completed, the lender's wife spoke up and said, "Don't be a fool, he will never make enough money to pay it off." Darrow himself had had serious doubts about the same thing, but something happened when he heard that remark. He became indignant both at the woman and at himself, and determined he would be a success. A businessman friend of mine had a very similar experience. A failure at 40, he continually worried about how things would come out, about his own inadequacies and whether or not he would be able to complete each business venture. Fearful and anxious, he was attempting to purchase some machinery on credit when the man's wife objected. She did not believe he would ever be able to pay for it. At first his hopes were dashed, but then he became indignant. Who was he to be pushed around like that? Who was he to sulk through the world, continually fearful of failure? The experience awakened something within him, some new self, and at once he saw this woman's remark, as well as his own opinions of himself, were an affront to this something. He had no money, no credit, and no way to accomplish what he wanted. But he found a way, and within 3 years was more successful than he had ever dreamed of being, not in one business, but in 3. We can see in these preceding examples how indignation and anger can work to our benefit if we allow it. Also, how people's snide remarks or lack of belief in our abilities can have the effect, if we allow it, of proving them wrong. He says, picture to yourself what you would like to be and have, and assume for the moment that such things might be possible. Arouse a deep desire for these things. Become enthusiastic about them. Dwell upon them, and keep going over them in your mind. Your present negative beliefs were formed by thoughts plus feelings. Generate enough emotion or deep feeling, and your new thoughts and ideas will cancel them out. He He says that in doing this, we are utilizing a technique we are all too familiar with: worry. When we worry, we focus on what could happen and draw out a picture of the end result, what the end result would look like if that which we are concerned with happening happens. When we do this, it causes that end result to be so real to us that we now react and behave in ways congruent with that which we fear. So to properly use this same technique to our benefit, we simply shift what we focus on. Focus instead on an end result that is in your favor rather than your detriment. Focus on feeling the good emotions of that end result. Same concept, different result. He reminds us that our subconscious can work just as well to accomplish failure as it can to success. Its results are only based on the information it has to work with. We generally underestimate our abilities and overestimate the nature of the difficulty facing us. Always think of what you have to do as easy, and it will become so. He tells us that we should not be so easily affected by comments from others. Since most of us are subjected to negativity on a daily basis, we don't have to blindly accept beliefs about us from other people. A good motto is, "It ain't necessarily so." It is the job of the conscious rational mind to form logical and correct conclusions. "I failed once in the past, so I will probably fail in the future" is neither logical nor rational. To conclude I can't in advance without trying, and in the absence of any evidence to the contrary, is not rational. We should be more like the man who was asked if he could play the piano. "I don't know," he said. "What do you mean you don't know?" He said, "I have never tried." It's the job of the conscious rational mind to keep the eye on the prize, so to speak. Its job is to maintain that focus on what you want. This is your job throughout the day. Make sure you are filling your mind with the things that keep you in that state that is on the opposite end of worry. It is not the job of the conscious rational mind to figure out how to make what we want happen. In short, conscious rational thought selects the goal, gathers the information, concludes, evaluates, and estimates, and starts the wheels in motion. It is not, however, responsible for results. We must learn to do our work, act upon the best assumptions available, and leave results to take care of themselves. So that was a pretty good chapter. I think it really related and tied together the conscious and subconscious in an understandable way. So let's quickly summarize this chapter. We learned that while the subconscious is responsible for bringing things into our reality, it is our conscious thoughts that dictate what information is sent to the subconscious. We learned that by dwelling on our mistakes from the past, we serve only to remain in the same pattern that got us there. Mistakes should be learned from, corrected, and then the memories of the mistakes should be replaced with the memory of the success so that we can move forward in success. We learned that by acting as if we have what we want or are who we want to be, we can break the hypnosis that we have been living in and achieve great things, even things that we didn't know we were good at. In conclusion, if we hold an irrational belief that is inconsistent with a truly rational belief, we must examine that irrational belief and rid ourselves of it, because we cannot logically hold a belief about ourselves that goes against who we believe we are. Okay, guys, that wraps up Chapter 5 of Psycho-Cybernetics. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, do me a favor and hit that like button. Also, please subscribe to the channel and make sure to select that notification bell to be alerted when we drop a new video. We've got a lot of good ones coming up, so don't miss out. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you all on the next one.